Ambassador Kalon of the Galactic Concordance stepped through the airlock and onto Babylon Station with a mixture of anticipation and trepidation. He had waited years for this appointment to the human station, a chance to learn about the galaxy's most perplexing species. As the pressurized doors hissed shut behind him, Kalon couldn't help but marvel at the sheer scale of the structure. The entry atrium soared at least 100 meters high, crisscrossed by walkways and dotted with alien vegetation samples. Overhead, a holographic display showed the ceaseless traffic of ships flitting to and fro from the many docking bays. But what struck Kalon immediately were the weapons. Mere steps away, a pair of hulking armored figures clutched massive rifles, their eyes hidden behind opaque black visors. Around the periphery, more armed guards stood at rigid attention beside security scanners and checkpoints. Even the dock workers, loading crates onto hover trolleys, had sidearms strapped to their hips. Kalon swallowed hard, one green hand unconsciously touching the smooth skin where his species had long ago evolved away from their natural defensive claws. He fervently hoped the human propensity for going armed wouldn't extend to their diplomacy. "Ambassador Kalon," I presume a confident female voice interrupted his thoughts. "Welcome to Babylon Station." Kalon turned to see a statuesque woman gliding toward him across the polished metal floor. She wore a sleek black uniform adorned with colorful insignia and campaign ribbons that Kalon could only guess at. Her auburn hair was cropped close in a severe military style, but her eyes sparkled with warmth and intelligence. "Ambassador Talia Greaves," Kalon said, breaking into his most ingratiating smile. "The Galactic Concordance's most perceptive mind matched with humanity's most strategically accomplished. I anticipate our talks will be quite fruitful." Greaves accepted his outstretched hand in a firm grip, her fingers calloused in a way that spoke of long hours gripping weapons as well as pens. "On behalf of the Systems Alliance and all of Earth, welcome. I look forward to giving you an inside look at the human way of life as we discuss the future of human concordance relations." Kalon fell into step alongside the human ambassador as she led him into the station proper, but his eyes kept tracking to the armed soldiers standing guard seemingly everywhere. "Your security is quite formidable," he said delicately. Greaves just smiled cryptically as they walked beneath the barrel of an enormous autogun that tracked their path. "You ain't seen nothing yet, guns everywhere," as Ambassador Greaves led Kalon through the winding corridors of Babylon Station. The Concordance Diplomat couldn't help but marvel at the sheer variety of humanity on display. They passed humans of every size, shape, and color, speaking dozens of languages and dressed in everything from crisp uniforms to eye-watering casual wear. But no matter their outward differences, Kalon noticed one common thread: nearly every human was armed. From the bored-looking teenager slouching against a bulkhead to the silver-haired matriarch bickering with a food vendor, they all carried some form of weapon. Here, a wicked-looking curved blade; there, a sleek laser pistol. Greaves noticed him staring. "I'm sure it must look strange from the outside, but weapons are just a fact of life for us tools to be respected, like any other." She gestured to a nondescript door. "Here, let me show you something that might help explain." The door opened onto a shooting range, where a boisterous group of humans were laughing and jostling each other as they took turns firing at holographic targets. They wore an eye-bending array of clashing patterns and colors, but the camaraderie between them was obvious. "Those are Marines, aren't they?" Kalon asked, recognizing the insignia on their sleeves. "I didn't realize you're elite warriors engaged in such recreational pursuits." Greaves chuckled. "Oh, they're not elite. Or rather, they're no more elite than any other human. Marksmanship is a skill we all learn from a young age. Watch. As Kalon looked closer, he realized with a start that some of the figures were mere children no more than 7 or 8 cycles old, but they handled their weapons with the ease of long familiarity, giggling as they sent tight clusters of shots into the targets. One girl, her hair in stubby pigtails, turned and spotted Greaves, her face lighting up. "Aunt Talia, did you see? I got a bullseye." Greaves scooped up the girl in a hug. "A talented Susie, you'll make sniper school yet." She turned back to Kalon, still carrying the child. "My niece. Starting a bit late, honestly, but she's always been more interested in book learning. Diplomacy may suit her too." In time, Kalon found himself at a loss for words. The idea of children handling deadly weapons as playthings was so far outside his frame of reference as to be incomprehensible. Greaves must have sensed his unease. "Guns aren't just military tools for us," she explained. "They're part of our cultural identity. The history of human civilization is a history of weapons for good and for ill. Come on, let me show you the histories. Maybe it will help you understand how we got to be this way." Secrets of Human Strength. Greaves led Kalon into a dimly lit room dominated by an enormous holographic display. With a few deft keystrokes, she called up a swirling collage of images that resolved into a roughly chronological slideshow of human history. "We were killing each other right from the start," she said matter-of-factly, as scenes of primitive warfare flashed across the screen. Rocks, clubs, spears. Weapons have defined our development as a species from our earliest days. Kalon watched in fascinated horror as the images progressed through increasingly sophisticated means of destruction: swords, bows, cannons, guns, bombs, missiles, lasers. Humans killing humans in numbers that defied comprehension. "But we also turned our weapons outwards," Greaves continued. "A new set of images showing humans in spacesuits and ships bristling with armaments. When we first ventured to the stars, we discovered we weren't alone, and not all our neighbors were friendly." The display shifted to scenes of war against hideous alien forms. Insectoid, reptilian, betentacled horrors that Kalon recognized from Concordance threat assessments. In each scenario, humans were outnumbered, outmatched, yet somehow impossibly they held the line. "Our mastery of weapons allowed us to punch far above our weight as a species," Greaves explained. "Time and again, we found ourselves facing existential threats, and time and again, our skill at violence saw us through." She paused the playback on a scene of humans standing triumphant atop a mound of alien corpses, a tattered flag fluttering in an alien breeze. "We don't love war, but we're damn good at it. It's why we're still here, and so many other species are not." Kalon shook his head slowly, trying to process the implications. "Your people have faced trials mine can scarcely imagine," he said. "I begin to understand why you see weapons as so central to your identity." Greaves nodded, her eyes distant. "Every human has a story like this," she said softly. "Here's mine." The display changed again, this time to helmet cam footage of a group of human soldiers in a dense green jungle. Kalon recognized a younger Greaves, her face streaked with sweat and grime. Suddenly, an explosion blossomed in the center of the formation. Soldiers flew like ragdolls as a horde of shadowy figures emerged from the undergrowth, firing indiscriminately. "Pirate ambush on Tel's IV." Greaves' voice remained cool over the screams and cries echoing through the room. "We were escorting a diplomatic mission, much like this one. They hit us with EMP mines, fried our comms and most of our weapons. But they made one crucial mistake." On screen, the younger Greaves rolled to her feet amidst the chaos, snatching up a fallen pirate's sidearm. With ruthless efficiency, she began putting down pirates with precise headshots, rallying the surviving humans to her side. "They assumed taking our tech would leave us helpless," Greaves said as her digital ghost mowed down a seemingly endless stream of enemies. "They didn't count on our training, our instinct for battle." The human spirit, you might say. The recording ended with Greaves, battered and bloody but unbowed, standing alone amidst a sea of fallen foes. She turned to face the camera, and Kalon felt a chill at the hardened resolve in those eyes. "We all have a story like this," Greaves repeated, vanishing the display with a wave. "Every human. Because being human means being a survivor, whether we like it or not." She fixed Kalon with a complicated look, equal parts pride and sadness. "Do you understand us better now?" Kalon met her gaze, mind a whirl with the implications of all he had seen. "I believe I am beginning to." Ambassador Greaves, "Humanity is unlike any species we have encountered before. Your strength is undeniable, but I suspect it comes with a heavy price." Greaves opened her mouth to reply but was cut off by a shrill alarm that echoed through the room like a banshee's cry. A mechanical voice boomed from unseen speakers. "Alert! Babylon Station is under attack. This is not a drill. All personnel report to battle stations. Repeat, Babylon Station is under attack." Looming tensions. Kalon flinched as another explosion rocked Babylon Station, the deck shuddering beneath his feet. Emergency lights painted the corridor in lurid shades of red and orange as a steady stream of grim-faced humans rushed past, weapons at the ready. "This way." Ambassador Greaves called over the din of blaring alarms. "We need to get you to a secure location." She half led, half dragged him through a dizzying series of passages until they emerged into what appeared to be a command center. Uniformed humans hunched over control panels flickering with dire sensor readings, while a cluster of officers gathered around a central holographic display. "What's our status?" Greaves demanded, striding up to the group. A grizzled man with admiral's bars turned to face her, his expression grim. "It's the Krith, Ambassador. A full assault fleet, at least 30 capital ships, plus fighter screens. They've already crippled our outer defenses." Greaves cursed under her breath. "The Krith? But we had a peace accord. Why would they break it now?" The admiral's eyes cut to Kalon, then back to Greaves. Perhaps our guest could shed some light on that. Kalon shifted uncomfortably as every human eye turned to him. "The Concordance has no more insight into Krith motivations than you do," he said carefully. "We've had little contact with them since they withdrew from galactic affairs a generation ago." Greaves frowned but nodded. "The why of it will have to wait. Right now we have a station to defend. Admiral, what are our options?" As the humans launched into a rapid-fire tactical discussion, Kalon found himself pushed to the sidelines, forgotten. He watched the holographic display with growing unease as squadron after squadron of human ships were wiped away by the implacable advance of the Krith fleet. Humanity was putting up a fierce fight, but even to Kalon's untrained eye, the outcome seemed inevitable. Babylon Station was outmatched, plain and simple. It would fall, and untold human lives would fall with it. The thought filled Kalon with an emotion he was surprised to identify as grief. In the short time he'd spent among them, he had developed a nascent fondness for these strange, violent, resilient creatures. The idea of them being snuffed out by the uncaring claws of the Krith filled him with an unfamiliar rage. Almost without realizing it, he found himself stepping forward. "Ambassador Greaves," if I may. The humans turned to him, surprised. Greaves raised an eyebrow. "You have something to contribute, Ambassador Kalon." Kalon took a deep breath. The Concordance has ships nearby. Not many, and not as strong as yours, but we have other advantages: stealth technology, MPs, viral weaponry. Things you don't. He saw realization dawn on Greaves' face, followed quickly by a furrowed brow. That's generous, Ambassador, but those weapons are banned by every PR convention of civilized warfare. Kalon spread his hands. These are uncivilized times, Ambassador, and the Krith have already shown their disregard for such conventions. Greaves chewed her lip, clearly torn. The Admiral leaned in, murmuring something Kalon couldn't catch. Finally, she turned back to him, a look of iron resolve on her face. The Concordance fleet would be a welcome addition to the battle, she said. Coordinate with Admiral Corvin Hale to integrate your ships into our command structure. And Ambassador. Her gaze softened fractionally. Thank you. We won't forget this. Kalon inclined his head. Thank me if we survive. Ambassador Greaves, the humans allowed themselves a grim chuckle. Then it was back to the deadly serious business of trying to snatch survival from the jaws of defeat. But even as Kalon bent over a console to relay commands to the Concordant ships, he couldn't shake a growing sense of unease. There was something odd about this Krith attack beyond just its seeming unprovoked aggression. Some critical piece of the puzzle he was missing. He only hoped they would live long enough for him to figure out what it was. The command center shook violently as another salvo of Krith missiles slammed into Babylon Station's armored hull. Kalon grabbed the edge of a console to steady himself, his knuckles pale green against the cold metal. On the primary display screen, a squadron of human fighters spun desperately, trying to evade the relentless onslaught of alien warships. One by one, they winked out of existence, swatted from the sky like flies. In Concordant stealth ships in position barked Admiral Hale from across the room. Initiating EMP strike now. For a heart-stopping moment, nothing happened. Then a series of brilliant blue-white flashes lit up the screen as electromagnetic pulses slammed into the Krith fleet. Alien ships reeled drunkenly, their systems scrambled. Some collided with one another in spectacular displays of pyrotechnics. A ragged cheer went up from the human defenders. "It's working," someone shouted. "We've got them on the ropes," but Kalon couldn't shake the feeling that something was wrong. The Krith were supposed to have advanced EMP countermeasures. This felt too easy, too staged. As if in answer to his suspicions, a new wave of Krith warships dropped out of warp, right on top of the station. They opened fire immediately, sending gouts of plasma scorching into the heart of the human defenses. Incoming, Admiral Hale roared. "All hands, brace for impact." The deck heaved and bucked like a storm-tossed ship. Consoles exploded in showers of sparks and shrapnel, sending humans reeling. The lights flickered once, twice, then died completely, plunging the command center into darkness. In the sudden, awful stillness that followed, Kalon could hear the distant screams of the wounded and dying. A cold dread settled into his gut. They were losing. A hand grabbed his arm roughly. "Ambassador, we need to evacuate." Greaves' voice hissed in his ear. "The Krith have breached the station. They'll be hunting for high-value targets." Kalon's mind raced, even as Greaves pulled him bodily from the command center, down a debris-strewn corridor lit only by flickering emergency lights. Something about this attack still didn't sit right with him. Why would the Krith break the peace accord now? He panted as they ran. What could they hope to gain? He could practically hear Greaves frown in the darkness. "Intel suggested they were after our L propulsion tech, but you're right. This feels like more than a raid." A chilling thought occurred to Kalon. "Ambassador, What if the target wasn't your technology? What if it was me? Greaves skidded to a halt, whirling to face him. Explain, she snapped. Kalon spread his hands, the pieces falling into place with horrifying clarity. The Concordance has been brokering peace treaties across the galaxy, binding former enemies together in webs of mutual support and defense, including many of the Krith's historic foes. He saw realization dawn in Greaves' eyes. They see the Concordance as a threat, Kalon said grimly. And me as the architect of that threat. This attack was never about humanity. It was about disrupting the peace process by eliminating me. Greaves' jaw clenched. And we played right into their hands by bringing you here. A series of nearby explosions rocked the corridor, underscoring the direness of their situation. Greaves grabbed Kalon's arm again, propelling him forward. We can worry about the whys later, she growled. Right now, we need to get you to a ship and off this station. But even as they ran, Kalon's mind churned with the implications of his realization. If the Concordance's diplomatic efforts were seen as enough of a threat to provoke this kind of aggression, then no ambassador was safe. The whole delicate balance of galactic power could unravel, propelling them all into a new age of war and strife. Unless they could find a way to stop it. Swords into plowshares, Kalon crouched behind an overturned table in Babylon Station's once grand atrium, clutching a borrowed human sidearm and shaking hands. Beside him, Ambassador Greaves and a handful of survivors fired grimly at the advancing Krith forces. The alien invaders chittered and hissed as they scuttled forward on too many legs, their exoskeletons shrugging off the humans' increasingly desperate gunfire. One Krith warrior reared up, energy cannon glowing an eerie blue as it prepared to fire, only to explode in a shower of ichor as a pinpoint shot took it through a faceted eye. Kalon followed the shot's trajectory to see a familiar pigtailed figure perched high in the rafters, cradling a sniper rifle. You get him, Susie Greaves crowed, pumping a fist in the air. The girl flashed a gap-toothed grin and lined up another shot. All around the atrium, similar scenes played out as the beleaguered human defenders rallied. Marines in powered armor waded into the fray, plasma blades flashing. A grizzled man in engineer's coveralls lobbed a jury-rigged grenade that sent Krith scattering. A matronly woman in a torn tech uniform calmly picked off alien after alien with a hand cannon nearly as big as she was. And in the center of it all, Kalon found himself firing alongside them, his initial trepidation forgotten in the heat of battle. These were his people now, for better or worse. Soldiers and civilians, young and old, they were all bound together by an unbreakable spirit, an indomitable will to survive and thrive, no matter the odds. It was, he realized with a start, the same spirit that had driven humanity to reach for the stars in the first place, the same spirit that had seen them through countless trials and tribulations, the same spirit that, even now bloody but unbroken, led them to stand defiant against the Krith onslaught. And in that moment, Kalon understood what he had to do. He rose from cover, ignoring Greaves' startled cry, and strode out into the open, arms spread wide. The Krith, startled by his sudden appearance, held their fire for a moment. "I am Ambassador Kalon of the Galactic Concordance," he called out, his voice ringing through the sudden stillness. "I know what you want. I know why you're really here." The Krith leader, a towering monstrosity in ornate battle armor, stepped forward, its mandibles clicking menacingly. "Surrender," mammal, it hissed. "Your schemes end here." Kalon shook his head. "No, our schemes, as you call them, are just beginning. The Concordance will not stop until every sentient species in the galaxy is united in bonds of friendship and cooperation, including the Krith." The alien leader reared back, foreclaws snapping in agitation. Impossible. Krith do not cooperate. Krith do not befriend. Krith conquer the old Krith, perhaps Kalon agreed. But you can be so much more. Join us. Put aside this cycle of war and vengeance. Take your rightful place in the galactic community. For a long, tense moment, the atrium was silent, except for the faint moans of the wounded and the distant rumble of explosions. Human and Krith alike stared at Kalon, weapons half lowered, as if caught in some strange spell. Then, slowly, wondrously, the Krith leader lowered its cannon. Perhaps it clicked thoughtfully. There is wisdom in your words, mammal. Perhaps it is time for change. Kalon let out a breath he hadn't realized he'd been holding. Behind him, he heard Greaves do the same. It was over. They had won. Not through superior firepower or technological might, but through something far more powerful, the unifying force of an idea. The idea that all species, no matter how different, could find common ground. That swords could be beaten into plowshares, and that even the most implacable of foes could become the staunchest of allies. It was an idea that Kalon knew would define his life's work going forward. And as he stood there amidst the wreckage of Babylon Station, surrounded by the weary smiles of his human comrades, he couldn't help but feel that that work was off to a very good start indeed. Because while humanity might not always understand the Concordance's methods, there was no denying that their ultimate goal was the same: peace, prosperity, and a better tomorrow for all. Even if they occasionally needed to be reminded that there was more than one way to get there. Thanks for watching. If you enjoyed this story, don't forget to like the video and hit subscribe for more exciting content. Make sure to turn on the notification bell so you never miss an update.